So first introductions. Am I the only one with a tie on? Oh, there's a couple. Thank you. So I spent 13 years in financial services. I'm a recovering banker. This is the uniform. I have a bunch of them in the closet that aren't fully depreciated yet, so events like this are my excuse to wear them. Prior to joining Dell, I was the global head of IT strategy and innovation at ABN AMRO Bank, which 7 years ago sold for $85 billion. So these are some of the most empathetic shoes that will speak to you because I've actually had all of the IT problems that you all face day in and day out. And I'm here to talk to you about security. So I love nothing more, right, than talking about security. And I love nothing more than data centers and being in the center of one because it's filled with data, which I believe is the currency of the future. Anybody disagree? Right? We used to protect Fort Knox and gold, and now we protect data, day in and day out. So how many people, show of hands, have more than one number one priority? All right, so some laughs up here, so some people are paying attention. You shouldn't, by definition, right? We should have one number one priority. At the bank, we had two. They were customer and security. You don't have a bank if you don't have customers. You don't have customers if you don't secure everything that has to do with the customer transaction and their finances. How many people have, as one of your number one priorities, security? Just a quick show of hands. All right, everybody else needs to take a real hard look at their priorities, right? Because I would suggest that somebody in your company thinks that security is probably higher on your list than maybe you do. So real quick, I'm a nerd. If you do not get this reference because you're too young, please ask somebody with a little bit of gray hair next to you what this means. So Hal proposed that there was a problem, and I happen to concur. There is a problem with security, and it is people, right? Stupid people. Stupid people who write passwords down on Post-it notes. Not anybody in this room, right? My old man has a red binder that says passwords on the side of it, carries around with them everywhere, right? I'm not saying he's stupid, he just can't remember them, right? Which is bad, right? Because we change them every 30 days if you're smart, right? But we don't change them enough, and we don't make them long enough, which makes it so people write them down, which creates a problem. The other thing I'm going to build on Eric's comments, right, is the trends in the marketplace. First and foremost, the cloud, right? When I rolled up to Scale Matrix, I actually expected a smokestack and billowing clouds to being created out the top of this building, right? Because that's what I think about. I think about clouds. How many people, quick show of hands, have had to explain what the cloud is to somebody at work? Is this what they think it is? Oh, you can't see that very well, right? That's a unicorn Pegasus on a cloud with a rainbow, right? The cloud is magical. Anything can be done in the cloud, and it's free or it costs 99 cents, and you should be able to do it instantaneously because that's what the cloud offers. Is that about right? Sum it up? In a recent poll, 50% of the people who answered said that they think that cloud infrastructure is affected by the weather and El Nino. That's who we're dealing with, folks, right? The cloud is incredibly powerful. I am all for using other people's stuff, right? But you got to be smart about it, and you got to do with companies like Scale Metrics that keep security first and foremost, right? When stuff leaves your four walls and your secure data center, which hopefully it is secure, you are now entrusting some level of security of your data to someone else. And you have to make sure you're not just shifting risk or shifting blame to someone else, because at the end of the day, it's going to be your fault if it goes wrong. Am I right? All right. What else? Consumerization. I call this bringing toys to work. Right? People want to use their semi-smartphone to access the beautiful data in the data center so that they can be more productive. And we want them to. What I love nothing more is consumerization is a made-up word. It's not a real word. It is marketeers getting us to talk about something that's not real, and we got to think about it for a second. We learned from one of the big motion picture companies that everything about your company is in email. Everything. And if you let some of your users from one of their semi-smartphones get email on that smartphone, they take it home, don't they? And I'll guarantee you that their home PC is not as secure as the one you provide. Fair? Because their 15-year-old uses it for homework. Air quotes. And when they plug that semi-smartphone at home into that homework PC, what's the message that pops up? Anyone? Do you trust? This device. Of course I do. I need to sync my pictures. It's my device. Of course I do. You just created a trusted relationship from a semi-smartphone and an infected node on the internet. How smart is that? It's not a good idea. Unless you're appropriately protecting the data, and the data I'm talking about is the information inside of your email and that your corporation cares about. Because it is what is the competitive advantage for you right now and going forward, is how your company communicates and what you communicate about. Eric did a great job, as did Tarkin, setting up the big data thing. Does anybody in here have a delete policy? Can you enforce it? We had policies at the bank out the wazoo, 3-ring binders of policies that we couldn't enforce. They were great, in theory. We don't delete anything usually, right? We take backups of the recycle bin and then we back that up because some user's gonna delete something and want you to magically fly in on your unicorn Pegasus and make it come back to life. Because we do that kind of stuff. Because we're magical and we do IT and they don't understand. Big data, because we don't delete anything and because data is the future currency, is just the beginning of the problem. This is not a Dell-sponsored slide. This is mine, right? It is only gonna get worse. If you do not have a schema and some way to access the data, it's not good enough just to store it. Somebody in your company is going to want some kind of report that's going to ask you to aggregate data from thousands of different places of disparate different parts of a database in different clouds and different brokers, on-prem, off-prem. I don't care where it is, but somebody's going to want a report, and they're going to look to you to provide it. And then next month, they're going to add a column to that report, and you're going to have to go redo everything. Right? Because there's no magical primary key that connects all this data that we're slewing all over the internet. Fair? But you are going to be expected to interpret it because it is going to be the competitive advantage of the future. And oh, by the way, the bad guys want nothing more than you to create a big data store that you don't have enough money because you already blew your budget to put a big fence around and protect. Think about it. You do a big bunch of data mining, you better put a big fence around it and make sure you know who has access to it, or you just created Fort Knox for the bad guys. Last but not least, right, it's not about backup. It is all about recovery. You are, well, I'm not even going to do show of hands because you're all going to have to raise your hands. Eventually, you will get some kind of malware. Anybody had CryptoLocker? Somebody, not you, right? But somebody at work had it, right? That wasn't you, right? You don't go to those sites, right? But it's not good when all of a sudden a computer locks up and holds the data for ransom or threatens to release it. How you react in a situation is both timely, is very important, how fast you react, and how accurately you get them out and make sure they can't get back in and do the forensics to figure out what they got. We all know there are bad guys out there, right? I'm not telling you. You guys know that this couldn't have been planned better. This is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So I'm doing my public service, right, to make everybody in here aware that there are bad guys out there. And the bad guys are trying to get in. If you've ever looked at your firewall or a log, you know that they're knocking. If you are not monitoring the traffic outside your network, not the stuff just coming in, but the stuff going out is just as important. The stuff going sideways is important. You have to pay attention. This is not an opportunity where ignorance is bliss. It is actually important and expected that you're keeping up with what the bad guys are doing and protecting the data that is critical to your company. So this is a scary slide. For those in the back, you're not going to be able to read it. I apologize. I'm going to draw your attention to the green box. I will read that one to you. Of the companies that were surveyed and lost confidential data, 70% of the data lost was due to stolen USB sticks. Okay? You can have the greatest next-gen firewall that does deep packet inspection like the ones we sell. It ain't going to stop somebody from dragging something over to a USB stick and walking out. Right? I have lost my USB stick, not lost, right? It's gone to the dry cleaner more than 5 times. Okay? It always comes back. I have a very good dry cleaner, which is nice. But it's because that drive is encrypted. Because I'll guarantee you, whoever found my USB stick jammed it into a PC there at the dry cleaner to see what they found. Because data is currency. And it has a value. You can find out what your medical records and your credit card and your birth date are worth on the internet. It's not a black market anymore. It's more gray. right? There are known price tags for this stuff, which is why there are organized, well-funded, and really, really scary, smart people that are going after it because they can make money. A lot of money, right? That's why people robbed banks back in the day, because that's where the money is. People are robbing data now. All the time. Anybody have to replace a credit card in the last 12 months? Got a new one sent? Sorry for the inconvenience. You didn't do anything wrong. Somebody did something wrong. Whole boards of directors were removed because somebody did something wrong. It's serious business. And this guy is falling. It's not really, right? But we do have to prepare ourselves. Dell's done a lot of investing over the last 10 years in security and a portfolio of assets that start with our client. Having signed BIOS on a client machine means you can't take over the hardware. There are other manufacturers out there, you can Google it, where if you flash the BIOS, you can take over the hardware. Let's just say that's not a good thing. You got to patch your systems. NIST will tell you that 80% of the malware that's out there is striking in the US right now. 80% of it is attacking a known vulnerability that has an existing patch that just hasn't been applied. That's your fault. Not you, but I mean, like us as an industry. Everybody familiar with Kevin Mitnick? Heard of him, right? If you haven't read his book, I highly recommend it, right? And he's got several, but Ghost in the Wires is a very fast read for folks in the industry. If you haven't read it, it's a must. It will scare the beans out of you. You won't sleep well because he uses social engineering to gain access to systems, and then he uses unpatched systems to be able to get back in. That's what they do. That's what the bad guys do. Anybody heard of an ethical hacker? Anybody ever hire one? Did you learn something? Yeah, it's a scary bunch, right? So at the bank, I hired one. We'll call him John. It's not his real name. John was a 20-something Dutch kid whose brain, I think, worked like a computer. It just did. His hobby was breaking into computers, and instead of going to jail and disappointing his mom, he got a very well-paying job at the bank teaching us how he does what he does. Right, so one of the days at lunch, John shares with me, he goes, Ben, you know Patch Tuesday? I'm like, oh my God, like who in this industry doesn't know what Patch Tuesday is? Followed by a phone call Wednesday and Thursday. Work through the weekend and potentially roll back Sunday. I said, of course, John, I know what Patch Tuesday is. And he goes, well, your sus server is smoking in the corner. Me and my buddies have an 18-pack of Heineken and pizza on the way. I said, John, sounds like a normal Tuesday for you. What's different? He goes, well, Microsoft tells us. Plan B. There we go. All right, we're back. All right, the show will continue. So John says while the sus server is smoking, him and his buddies are getting together because Microsoft shows us where all the holes are. He goes, there's always something new. It's like Christmas. So first, we go and wrap the present, figure out what's there. Then we figure out what we can do with it. And then there's a race between me and my buddies and you. You to patch 120,000 systems in 50 countries, me to find one. He goes, I'm going to win every single time. So we changed a lot of policies. We changed a lot of procedures. I can't tell you, patching is single-handedly your best defense, and it is always lower on our priority list because we always have something better to do. There's nothing more important. You want to make your servers, your clients, harder to get into than the next guy. It's the easiest thing to do, but we often, again, push it down the list. Firewalls, got to have it. I highly recommend if you don't have penetration tests and security professionals, we've got something with SecureWorks, right, where you can get a retainer. I can tell you when something goes bad and you know something went wrong, that is the wrong time to be Googling for who can help me get out of this jam. So you can get our guys just like you would a lawyer on retainer, so you get all the paperwork out of the way, and if something goes sideways, we'll drop people out of airplanes and help you out. We help a lot of the organizations with just initials do a lot of forensics on how did somebody get in, what did they get, and how do you make sure they're out. So all very important things for you to consider. And what Dell's trying to do is pull it all together from identity and access to managing the perimeter, to encrypting the data, all of this stuff has to come together because the bad guys are looking for cracks. They're looking for flaws in the exterior. And unfortunately, there are far too many of them. And because, again, there's lots of solutions to the problem, that makes it part of the problem. So data is the next currency. You have to protect the data because it's one of the most important things to the future of your company. I want to thank you for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of the show.